What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 16, 17? I don't even know what number this is of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lilienwall. I've got producer Noah back here with me. Noah, say what's up to the people.
Listen, folks, I've been in the content mines scraping up everything for you. All right? Every photo you ever see of an MLS player online, yeah, my hands have touched that.
Is this the excuse for why we haven't put one out in a while?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. We've been off the game. I was out of town for a little while. I was helping my parents move from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Eugene, Oregon.
Dr. Doolittle.
Yeah, I drove 22 hours straight with it's like a sitcom. I had 3 cats, a corgi, and a tortoise. And my sister and my dad, 22 hours straight. But honestly, that's not even that much of an excuse because I've been back for 2 weeks and we just still haven't done one. So
yeah, it's on me too. You know, I work 2 jobs now because
Noah has like
the rent is due.
Jobs plural, responsibilities.
Yeah, blame Macklemore.
But we're back at it now. That's all that matters. And let's try and put at least a couple of these out during the MLS playoffs here.
That's what I like to hear.
There's gonna be takes to be dished, so we'll try and dish them. Thank you all for tuning in. We've got a special playoff episode here for you today. MLS playoffs are underway. The first wild card games kicked off tonight. We had the New York Red Bulls and Charlotte FC play earlier this evening. The Red Bulls bammed 5-2.
Yeah.
And then Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts.
Correct. My former club as well.
Yeah. They're currently taking on the San Jose Earthquakes at 0-0. So we'll see what happens with that one. So we're gonna pop open the bracket a little bit later and just do some takes on the other series that are going on. Make some picks, I think. Let you know how I see it shaping up. But first, we're gonna dive into Seattle Sounders takes here to start it off. It's been so long that since we recorded one of these that I would say the vibes have shifted pretty dramatically since the last time we recorded. Things are actually, I think, looking reasonably good for Seattle going into the postseason. So we'll see how it. We'll see how it actually pans out. But Seattle finished second in the West, Noah. They finished second in the West.
That they did.
On 53 points, I believe.
Something close. A historically bad Western Conference finish.
53 points, 14, 9, and 11.
That's like 6th in the league, right? In terms of Supporters' Shield total, I think. Something like that.
Well, so the top 5 seeds in the East all had more than 53 points.
So,
but I'm not even gonna go negative there. I'm not. It's no one else's responsibility but the rest of the teams in the West to ensure that a team that gets 53 points doesn't finish second.
Correct.
So if you haul 53 and that's good enough for second, then I'm not going to ding you for that too much. I do. I get what you're saying. Like, it's fair to point out that this year the West was not very strong, and that's sort of why they were able to hover near the top of the table all year. So that's fair to point out. But the fact of the matter is they finished second in the West. They got home field advantage in the playoffs. And, I think more importantly than that, though, than the raw point total is, they're at 9 unbeaten right now.
Mm-hmm. And
they've looked a lot better on offense. The defense has continued to perform at an elite level, I'll say. They've had one of the best defenses in the league all season, both in terms of goals conceded and the underlying numbers. And that's more or less held true over this latest unbeaten run. So, we could talk about what's been different. I would say number one is I think they've found a lineup. And it's a pretty interesting first choice lineup because it does not include either of their DPs, Nicolas Ladero or Raul Ruidiaz. the way Schmetz has been rolling it out, first choice in this last set of games here has been J-Mo up top, Albert Rusnak behind him at the 10, flanked by Leo Chu and Christian Roldan. Then you got JP with one of Obed Vargas or Josh Atencio. Take your pick. But it's actually low-key been Atencio more these last few games.
I know.
We were talking about that.
Yeah.
Like how Josh deserved more minutes. He finally got him. And I think it's bared out actually that the team has looked better in that setup.
Yeah, I agree.
Josh Atencio is playing really well. He's I don't know if I would call it a full-on breakout campaign. He hasn't really had enough minutes for that. But I think there actually is a correlation between when he started getting the lion's share of the minutes there and when the team started to look a little bit better. There are other factors at play there. You know, Rusnak kind of being made the full-time 10. It's probably up there as well. And obviously Christian Roldan coming back.
Yeah,
that's probably the biggest factor of them all. We've talked about that all season.
Mm-hmm.
But the result has been a 9-game unbeaten run where they were still grinding out a lot of draws, but they also have 3 wins in that stretch. They've had a couple of games here where they've scored multiple goals. So it's all great to see. It's kind of cathartic, given how much of it has been kind of like pulling teeth in attack with this team this year. It's good to see them hitting their stride, and it's well-timed because now they got the playoffs, and they're actually going into it reasonably healthy and in good form. So that's kind of all you can ask. They've given themselves as good a chance as they could to make a run. They finished with the top 2 seed. They got home field. They're in good form. So kind of feels like it's all coming together a little bit.
What do you think? Do you think it's a little counterintuitive? Maybe it's not counterintuitive, or what it says about the league that the second that Brian Schmetzer decided, you know what, our 2 aging DPs, club legends, they're not performing, and they're going to sit for a what? How old are some of the players replacing them? You know, like before their generation.
Well,
I guess,
if you're going,
you know?
if you're talking just the exact replacements for them in the lineup, you got 2 veteran guys in
That's true.
J-Mo and Albert Rusnak.
Yeah.
But I don't know I don't know if it says much about the league.
Just that
it does say it actually brings us to a point that we'll probably talk more about over the offseason, but it kind of indicates that this is a roster that is soon to be in flux, in transition, however you want to put it.
Which we've talked about in depth.
We have talked about that in depth, but that actually, there was another kind of development with that in recent days with Nicolas Ladero basically confirming that this is his last season in Seattle. And Nico made it sound like there was a little bit of friction there.
Yeah, a little drama.
I read about the drama a little bit, but I don't know exactly what happened. But essentially, it seems like Nico was expecting more of a courtship to come back than he ended up getting.
Yeah.
And, I think the Sounders brass is more on the side of it of we want to take a wait and see approach here, and we're not willing to commit to bringing you back or making you a definitive offer like right away as we're starting to negotiate.
Which has been their MO in the past as well. I mean,
it has, but it's always a little tricky when you've got a club legend like this.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, the same thing happened with Ozzy.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And
those tweets were fire.
His likes were even more fire.
His likes were fire.
But
I think you and I was in those likes, which tells you something.
We'll do more Nico retrospective at some point. But I mean,
gotta get him on the pod.
The only that would be a fire guest.
That'd be fire.
I mean, there's not much to say about his legacy or standing within club lore other than to say that he's the Sounders GOAT. I don't think there's any question about that. There's a couple of names that you could throw in there. Ozzy Alonso is an obvious one. You got Clint Dempsey, Obafemi Martins. There's a select group that you could put in that discussion, but I just think when you take into account trophies won, Like, he's got the most decorated trophy case of pretty much not just any Sounder, but any player in MLS history when you factor in CONCACAF Champions League. You know, I put so much weight on that. And he was the driving force, the engine behind that trophy. The way that he completely turned around the entire organization, really, in 2016 and led them to that MLS Cup. That's, you know, when you're making the list of transformative midseason arrivals in MLS history, that's got to be number one. They were 6-12-2
Yeah, they were
when he got
terrible.
here, and then they ripped up the league the rest of the season and won MLS Cup.
Yeah, and
So-
crazy to be like the second that Brian stepped in, basically. Nico stepped in, and, you know, people will praise Brian all day, as they should. They should also be like, damn, Nico basically built that house with Brian.
100%. And, you know, so he'll always have a special place, I think, in every Sounders fan's heart for that. And, you know, you also got to, just the way he plays the game, all out effort all the time, runs more than anyone on the field, works harder than anyone else on the field on both sides of the ball. Not many number 10s like him play defense like him, cover as much ground as he covers. If you look at like the fitness and running data from every single game that he plays, he runs the most on the field of any player by like multiple miles every single game. So if this is the end for Nicolas Lodeiro, I mean, it's the end of one of the greatest runs for any player in MLS that we've ever seen. So
Build the statue.
Hopefully, build the statue, and hopefully there's a time where that can get recognized and commemorated in the way that it deserves. But for now, Nico says he's all eyes ahead on the playoffs and trying to send it off with another trophy. So that's what the team is going to be focused on. You know, if there's any source of optimism for this team making a run, I think that decision day game in St. Louis can provide it. I thought that was a great performance. Noah, I'm to understand that you didn't catch that game, so I can give you the lowdown.
Yeah, no, I was actually at a Huskies game, the most brutal UW game of all time.
UW football?
Yeah, UW Arizona State.
Oh, you're at
which
that?
was it was bad game.
I didn't see what happened, but I saw the score and it didn't look very entertaining.
Yeah,
so.
Michael Penix, 2 picks, a fumble. Oh, it was bad. Anyway, but yeah, no, I saw the highlights. I was keeping track with my limited Twitter access, but it sounded like a banger.
The scoreline reflected the performance. I thought Seattle looked very good, to be honest. Pretty much all game. 2 really nice goals. The source of encouragement from the first goal was that Christian Roldan made it happen. He got free down the right side in all kinds of space, picks out Albert Rusnak for a first-time finish, past Roman Berkey. And it was just kind of one of those moments that's a reminder of like, oh, yeah, that makes it way easier to score goals, doesn't it? When you have a player that's as creative and smart as Christian Roldan on the ball. They've been missing that presence on the right side all year. It was the number one thing that we talked about. It was like a broken record every time we talked about this team struggling. Like, man, well, it would really help if they could get Christian back. And you see it in a play like that right there. And if he's in form and healthy in the playoffs, as it seems to be, I honestly think this team can stack up with anybody, at least in the West.
Easy.
So that's a great reason to think that they can make a run right there.
And we don't have to worry about Portland.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we'll get into the FC Dallas matchup in a bit. But the second goal I liked even better. This was one of my favorite goals of the season, actually, because RBW made it happen on the other side. RBW, so for a lot of the season, RBW has been getting minutes here or there. And, you know, he's this big-time prospect. He's supposedly getting scouted by all these Big Six clubs. And you see flashes of it. But you hadn't really seen him impact the game consistently and make kind of the game-changing plays that you expect from a prospect of his pedigree. And so this was probably the biggest instance where you actually saw it. He's making a run into the box from the left side, and he's trying to lay a low cross in, and it takes a deflection off of Tim Parker. They roll it an own goal, which is fair enough, but I say just give it to the kid.
Yeah, just give it to him.
I was pretty annoyed about that.
I counted it in my heart.
It's one of those. I think I tweeted this, but like it's one of those where I think I use Messi as the example, but like any big time attacker like Carlos Vela or I don't know like Johnny Russell, who, I don't know if he's big time, but whoever you want to name, if they get like a slight deflection like that, they're not ruling that an own goal.
No,
like they just did it because he's 18 and a defender. Yeah, goal. But needless to say,
it's like the Danny Leyva goal that got called back on his debut. That counts in my book.
RBW and Danny Leyva have a combined 2 MLS goals.
Correct,
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But it was great to see RBW just make a play. He was making things happen. They get a goal out of it. And unfortunately, he strained his hamstring in the game, so he's not going to play at least the first game against FC Dallas, and I would imagine probably not the second game. It seems like there's maybe a possibility he's going to play in the second game.
Let's hope.
We can hope, because that would be a bummer if he doesn't get to play in the playoffs, because he's just coming on. RBW is coming.
Oh yeah,
he's
everything that everyone's ever wanted Nuhu to be and more.
The thing is he's just much more multifaceted than Nuhu. He's a lot more fundamentally sound in attack. Nuhu,
that's underselling it there. I feel like,
Nuhu's still the better defensive player. But RBW has kind of been he's been looking good on that side of the ball too. So you have more of a two-way threat with RBW than Nuhu, even if you sacrifice a little bit in terms of defense. But it's going to be Nuhu against FC Dallas with RBW sidelined.
I need RBW and Cody Baker to fuse.
But it is kind of a thing where you see RBW create a goal from that side basically by himself, and you're not going to get that with Nuhu in there.
No.
So you're actually, with RBW coming out now and being injured, you're kind of losing that element from the left side. So they're going to have to contend with that. But I do think with the boost that they've gotten from Christian Roldan in attack and Albert Rusnak in good form at the 10, I don't know if that's enough to take you on a run all the way to MLS Cup, but I don't think it's impossible. So overall, I was just really encouraged by what I saw in the St. Louis game. Going into City Park, their stadium, and keeping a clean sheet, not easy to do either. St. Louis didn't get shut out very many times at home this year. And they had Edward Lowen out there. They had Joel Klaus out there.
Klaus is getting heated, right?
Yeah, so I forgot about that, but Joel Klaus, unfortunately, he's not a fan of Alex Roldan. They did not end up getting along very well.
See, I'm a fan
I didn't
of Alex
even
Roldan.
really see what happened, but I do know that right after the game was over, Klaus kind of, like right at the end of the game and after the final whistle, he kind of lost it. He kind of lost his mind, and Alex was talking trash to him. I think they had been kind of going at it all game, and it kind of boiled over at the end. And Alex was letting him know about it. And Joel Klaus came over to the Sounders bench, and he was he was yapping. And then Yamar was being pretty funny. He was like giving him a hug and trying to calm him down and laughing. And Joel Klaus was just not having it. So yeah, a little bad blood there. Maybe if these teams meet again in the playoffs, we'll get to see round 2 of Joao Klaus versus Alex Roldan. It's kind of funny because Alex Roldan's like, I feel like he's traditionally not like a get under your skin type defender. Like, he's going to compete against you, but he's not. He doesn't have like that kind of reputation. So yeah. I don't really know what was going on, but it was entertaining to watch. Now they're have this matchup with FC Dallas, who are the number 7 seed in the Western Conference, and Seattle's going to have the first leg at home on Monday.
Yep.
Yeah, Monday the 30th.
That one I will be at.
Hell yeah, it's going to be a festive occasion, playoffs. And so the way it works under the new format is they'll play one here, one in the thriving metropolis of Frisco, Texas.
Correct.
And then if a third game is necessary, then they'll play that back here at Lumen. And the thing to know about the best of 3 series is that, it's obviously first team to win 2 games, but there's no ties and there's no extra time.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No extra time, straight to PKs.
Yeah, it's straight to PKs. So you could have multiple games decided in PKs.
What are your thoughts on that? MLSsoccer.com, sorry, Louie. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think it's a little weird to decide like individual games in penalties like that. Like I kind of liked the 2-leg series when they did it by aggregate. So if it's up to me, that's probably how I would do it.
Would you keep home and away goal?
I've never been like the biggest fan of away goals, but I understand why they do it, because if you don't have it, it really, really incentivizes the road team to bunker. So that's the reason that they do that. I even though I understand it's like unsatisfying, or a lot of the times, you think that you're about to win and then you realize the away goals, that's frustrating. But what I was going to say is that I actually kind of like I liked the 2-legged series back in the day, and I like having a series of multiple games, just the principle of that. Because the single elimination is definitely more exciting. And it's way more random, which can be exciting. But I kind of like how over the course of multiple games, you really see who the better team is, and the better team usually ends up winning that over the extended sample size, And so it feels like it rewards the team that is actually better. Yeah. Whereas in a one-off game, random stuff can happen and you see more upsets, and that's exciting. But I like seeing the team that's better, get to prove it over a longer period of time and ultimately get rewarded for being better.
Yeah, no, I feel the same exact way. I don't like 3 games is ridiculous, like especially with the insanely expanded season that we played this year. I don't understand how you're adding. I mean, this is all hypothetical because it could be 2 games. There could not be a game 3 in the entire playoff, but I don't know. It seems silly where you have Leagues Cup, Open Cup, MLS regular season. What other now playoffs, potentially 3 games. I don't know.
It's a lot of games. It's a lot of games, and I think there's definitely fair concerns about that. I have my concerns about that. Well, just because you do have a situation where you have limited roster depth and a hugely congested schedule. Yeah. So there's going to be I have to imagine there's going to be a reckoning with that at some point. Where if they're going to have this many games, you got to let teams
and CCL
build deeper rosters.
That's what I forgot to add.
Yeah, CCC now.
CCC with even more teams playing in it as well.
As far as this FC Dallas matchup goes, I actually love this matchup for Seattle. I don't know about Noah. But,
I do.
Like, when you get to the playoffs, there's going to be a baseline of competence, I would say, with any team that you get. Even with the MLS playoff structure being really forgiving and 9 teams from each conference get in, even the 8 or 9 seeds, they're going to be capable of giving you a game. So it's not to say that I think this FC Dallas series is going to be an easy series or Seattle's just going to run all over them and win it easily. But just in terms of this matchup compared to the matchups that they could have gotten, there was an off chance on decision day that they were going to get Portland if Portland had made it, which they did not make the playoffs, sadly.
Yeah. Apple TV was rubbing their grubby little hands.
The Portland Timbers were eliminated on the last day of the season with a 3-1 defeat to I don't even remember who. Houston.
Yeah.
They got smashed on.
Yeah, they got banned.
But if they had won that game and gotten in, there was a scenario where they could have had the 7th seed, and then Seattle would have had them first round. I would have hated every second of that.
Me too.
I don't really like a hypothetical Vancouver matchup that much. I think they play really good ball, and
Scottish
they're better than
Messi.
their record. They have Scottish Messi. They're Houston. I don't
Houston's
think
nasty.
Houston's pretty nasty.
Houston's nasty.
Ben Olsen
guys.
has them playing serious ball. So I'm looking at all those, and I'm like, I don't really like any of those matchups. FC
Dallas is kind of nasty though.
They should be. Here's my thing: they should be way nastier than they actually are in practice.
Yeah.
If you look at their roster, yeah, they're pretty nasty. Jesus Ferreira, pretty nasty. Paul Areola, pretty nasty. Alan Velasco, theoretically nasty. Not that nasty on the stat sheet this year.
Correct.
He was number 1 in the under 22 rankings. He's a very talented player. He's very young. He's only 21. And he hasn't, I would say, if anything, he's underachieved this season.
That's fair. That's fair to say that.
He had a good year last year. A little bit of a down year this year, but I think the fact that he didn't break out this year, they were kind of hedging on that breakout from him, and they didn't really get it. So they're a team that, frankly, has pretty similar issues themselves to what Seattle had for a lot of this year, which is that they couldn't score goals consistently. And so for a team with Jesus Ferreira and Paul Areola and these guys that are proven MLS attackers, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
But
they're also 9 games unbeaten right now, though.
9 games unbeaten right now, and they have
most draws though.
They have one of the best goalkeepers in the league.
Correct.
So
Martin Paz.
That's Martin Paz.
He's kind of nasty backline too.
He's got one of the he's one of the more slept on goalkeepers in the league. Like every year, if you look at the numbers of the best goalkeepers, Martin Paz is right there.
It's because he has so many shots taken at him.
That's partially true, but even the advanced stats that you love,
he's cold.
He's good. He's good. So they're not. It's true. They're not an easy team to score on, but they're not a team that scores all that much themselves. And I think another thing that works in Seattle's favor here a little bit is that, if you just look at the playoff history between these teams, especially the recent history, Seattle's been able to handle FC Dallas in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's the famous J-Mo hat trick extra time game in 2019. They played again in it was either 20 or 21 or something, and they also won that. So in terms of the matchups that you could have hoped for Seattle to get, I'll take this one. I'll take it all day. I don't know if they're going to win it. They might not win it, but it's definitely a winnable matchup. I don't go into this thinking, oh, it's going to take some they're going to have to play the best soccer of their lives to beat FC Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't see it like that. It would be ideal if they played the best soccer of their lives. But they should be able to win this series. As far as the keys to them making a run, just in general, for this team, it's just all about where the goals are going to come from. That hasn't always been a question that's been easy to answer this year. And my biggest question is if they have enough in attack to really go on a deep playoff run and make it to MLS Cup. As good as they've looked over this last unbeaten stretch, they still drew five of those games, and it still felt like pulling teeth sometimes as far as scoring goals. I think Raul Ruidiaz has got to play play a role in this, man. I think he does. I know he's not in the first choice lineup necessarily right now. And I know he hasn't been fit and in form for pretty much this whole year. But this is a big game player. This is still your $10 million DP. This is a guy that he has the highest goals per 90 in the playoffs of any player in MLS history. So if you're really going to make a deep run, try and make a run of the cup. I don't know if he needs to be starting, but I think you got to get a few goals from him. I think you do. Whatever role or capacity that comes in, if it's starting, if it's as a super sub, I don't know. I don't know if you see it differently, but I see that as the biggest X factor. If they can get him healthy and in form and scoring goals, I love their chances of making a run in the West.
Yeah.
If it's this same 11 that they've been running out trying to carry the full load, I don't know if that's enough. I don't. It might be. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I can't sit here and confidently say that given what we've seen this season. And, this team scored 41 goals. So,
I think for once,
that's kind of how I see it.
I have a less doomer take than you.
Okay, hit me.
I think that we are finally seeing a matchup that will, not matchup, but lineup that will allow the Sounders to come out strong with pace and then allow them to sub on those veteran leaders, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes into the game and try and find some, support or goals against either tired defenders, tired legs, where it's honestly seems like it's been the opposite most of the season, where you're running Nico into the ground from the first second that he gets onto the field to the 90th minute when he plays. And I don't know, I just feel like you're starting all the young players. They're going to run everyone ragged and get the veterans in there, try and push the game to end. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm making shit up, but that's honestly what I'm seeing right now.
It is pretty sick to have Ladero and Rui Diaz coming off the bench. I was thinking about that during the St. Louis game when Seattle was making a sub and the camera showed Ladero getting ready to check in, and I was like, damn, I mean that's an ace in the pocket.
Yeah.
Even at his more advanced age and with him, not being the player that he once was, the guy still gives it his all every time. And for a 30-minute increment, coming off the bench, that's an X factor. So
that's what I'm saying.
We'll see how much they get out of those two guys in the playoffs. And, I kind of bake in a baseline of what they're going to get from Ladero.
Yeah.
But to me, Raul is the X factor. And if he can start scoring goals coming off the bench, I mean, that's huge. I think that could be the difference between a deep run, making it to Cup, and going home early.
And I think you have enough talent up front too that if he isn't producing, that you know what, you've still got Jordan, you've still got Chu, you have
Rusnak has been cooking.
Rusnak's been nasty, and I feel like he has gotten more of a green light to go ahead and just tear up and go on those attacking runs.
He's just so much better in that attacking role. I kind of, I defended it adamantly at the time, but looking back on it, I'm kind of like, I can't believe we were doing a whole round of discourse on how he's actually better as a holding mid.
No, I agree. Yeah.
I don't
he's
know.
Disgusting. He's nasty. There's a reason he's a DP. He is an attacking player. I understand why they played him in that position, but man,
I'll always defend it from the standpoint of they won CCL doing it, but it's just a lot better like this. It makes the whole attack so much easier to watch. I think I'm about ready to jump into the little bracket takes, if you
Get
want
ready.
to pull that up, and we can
Absolutely.
just go through the rest of the series and can tell you how I see it shaping out.
Yeah, and we're getting. Well, we should start on the East, I think, because this Sporting game is currently in penalties, and I'm keeping tabs on it. So
cool. I did watch the Red Bulls Charlotte game earlier, and I mean the Red Bulls beat them 5-2, and I don't know how much that says about the Red Bulls compared to how much it says about Charlotte. I tend to think it probably says a little more about Charlotte, but it's funny because the Red Bulls were they were out of the playoffs pretty much all season and barely got in on the last day.
Yeah.
And now
now
they're looking
the beast in the
pretty
East.
scary. And they have FC Cincinnati in round 1. Maybe we should just start there.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I'm taking Cincinnati all day.
Easy.
It's the best team in the league this year.
From
they're
Spoon.
They're probably the Cup favorites. But, I mean, what I'm saying is, like, low-key, the Red Bulls could give them a game, and I think they're going to give them a game. You know? The Red Bulls, they play all out. Not always to great effect, but you know they're going to be energy drink soccering you to death. So
just a slight update, Tim Melia with the save on the first San Jose shot. So
that's too bad. I was kind of hoping for the professional wrestling enthusiasts to get knocked out, but you know it's the first of a 2-game series, so
correct.
They still could.
Yeah,
but anyway, I got FC Cincinnati in that one. That's pretty easy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think anyone's touching FC Cincinnati till at least the second round there. I agree. I think Red Bulls will give them a game. They've been, I don't know. They play unhinged soccer. I feel like they'll have a game and score some
They're not
goals
necessarily a team you want to see in the playoffs.
No. They're New Jersey. Stand up. Let's hear you. You know? Philly, New England.
That's a good one. The 4-5 matchup.
That's a matchup I would expect that both the teams would be higher.
Yeah, you know, I was actually writing about it today on the website. Philly had 67 points last year. They were the second best team in the league to LAFC all year. They barely lost to LAFC in MLS Cup. They just weren't that dominant this year, and they're also not going into the playoffs in very good form. So I think there's a little upset opportunity for the Revs in this one, but like I'm still gonna take Philly because you know they've kind of gotten over the playoff demons. They've shown that they can at least make a deep playoff run, which they showed last year, and also the Revs have just kind of been roiled in scandal and turmoil since Bruce Arena left.
Yeah,
they got an interim coach right now. The vibes have just been off, and you know they were up near the top of the East when Bruce left, and ever since all that stuff happened, they've been good. You know they have a pretty loaded roster. Carles Gil is still one of the best players in the league. Gustavo Bo only played like 20 games this year, but when he does play, he's still a really good striker. So they have talent to be better than what their record ended up being. But just on vibes, like I think Philly probably gets by him. They had the exact same record this year, for what it's worth.
Yeah. I think Philly looks great. I think New England looks better, personally. I don't know. No one really knows what happened with the whole Bruce Arena situation, but it seems like the players are pretty determined to do something with a season that I think some of them feel like they were kind of screwed over in a sense. I don't really know all that happened.
I think you're right.
And I would never put it past a team that's stacked like that and has a chip on their shoulder. So I'm definitely going New England. Over Philly.
That's a good case you just made. Yeah, I could see it. I think I'm still thinking of Philly kind of how I thought of them last year. But they have all the same players.
They do. Really it's the same squad.
I don't really understand like why they had a down year this year. But
yeah. I mean, I think, maybe a little bit of a hangover from just incredible disappointment last season in the final. But I mean, did they even make a run in any of the other tournaments? I mean, didn't they get booted
No, they
from-
bomb out of everything.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't
That's
know.
kind of what Philly does at the
This
end
is
of the day.
correct. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not a Philly believer this season, unfortunately. So next up, Columbus, Atlanta.
Ooh, that's going to be a fun series because that's two of the best attacking teams in the league, and also, I mean, so with Atlanta, you've got one of the best attacking teams in the league, but also one of the most vulnerable defensive teams in the league.
Yeah.
With Columbus, you got one of the best attacking teams in the league, and also a team that has a propensity for conceding really bad and dumb goals.
Correct.
So that's going to be the Chaos Bowl. I forgot that was the matchup. I actually can't wait to watch.
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
a really good matchup.
That's probably my series to watch for at least in the East for the best of 3 series because I mean you got a lot of firepower and attack on both sides. Almada for Atlanta he got a red card on decision day,
Yeah,
so
that
he's
was
suspended for game 1. So that takes a little bit of the juice out of it, and honestly, that makes me tilt Columbus for the series. The fact that they don't have Almada for the first game, but Giacomakis for Atlanta, he's one of the better number 9s in the league. He has 17 goals. But I mean, no Almada is tough. But then on the Columbus side, you know, you've got Diego Rossi, who they replaced Zelarayan with, and Cucho Hernandez. Low-key probably should have been higher in MVP discussions.
Yeah, I agree.
Than he ended up being. That guy had a crazy year. Lucho's going to win MVP, and he racked 16 goals, 14 assists, I think. Cucho had 16 and 11, and he's ostensibly a number 9, and he was racking up assists at a crazy pace earlier this year. It calmed down a little bit, but there was a point earlier this year where he had like 9 or 10 assists in not that many games. And he's become Wilfred Nancy. That's if you guys want a more underheralded MLS coach that might be the best coach. He might be the best coach in the league. Wilfred Nancy.
I could honestly I could co-sign that.
He had CF Montreal like balling last year,
dude,
and that's why Columbus hired him off. And the work he's done with the crew, it's pretty cool to see because. You know, he didn't get a lot of shine in Montreal, and he didn't have a super great roster to work with. And Columbus hired him off, and Columbus has this pretty loaded roster. And so you're like, what happens when you give like a tactical savant like a roster of like Lamborghini quality DPs? And he kind of showed you what'll happen. You have the crew play the best attacking soccer in the league, I would say.
Yeah.
In terms of just like the aesthetic of it. The Houston Dynamo are low key up there. But
they're
those like highlight clips you see of the Houston Dynamo pinging the ball around like Barcelona and scoring these great team goals. That's like Columbus, like every goal.
No,
like So anyway,
so
long way of saying I got the crew.
Crew, I like that pick. I think I am. I mean, you pretty much nailed that down there, but I think I'm gonna go with Atlanta just because I don't know. Fuck it, Gonzo. He's
pick one for Gun. Honestly, man,
he knows what he's doing in the playoffs, but more than that, he's coaching for his life. He's coaching for his life.
If Almada wasn't suspended for the first game, I would say the series is pretty much a clean toss up.
That one's going to 3 games for sure.
But yeah, no, if there's one in the East that could definitely, it's that one.
Yeah,
I do think. Not having Almada really hurts. I didn't see the highlight of what the red card was. I know Atlanta fans were pissed about it, but
I wish that would get reset for the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just let him. We all would much rather watch that series with him playing. But
yeah, better TV. That's what's up. So last but definitely not least, Orlando, Nashville.
I got Orlando all day there. Orlando was low-key the second best team in the league this year behind FC Cincinnati. They had the second most points, over 60 points. Oscar Pereira, really good MLS coach. And they just have so much more firepower in attack than Nashville. I don't think Nashville can hang with them over a full series.
I think Nashville gets boat raced.
I kind of think they get boat raced. Nashville, it's like they have the same problems every year, and they just don't do a good enough job at solving them. Like the whole storyline with Nashville is it's Haney Mukhtar or bust. They have this great DP who is a perennial MVP candidate, puts up crazy numbers every year, scores a bunch of crazy goals, and then outside, like the stats on how much of their goal production comes from Haney Mukhtar and only Haney Mukhtar, it's like staggering.
Yeah.
And they signed Sam Sturridge, who was supposed to be the answer at the number 9, and I think he scored a few goals for them, but he hasn't been anything crazy special, and he hasn't really had the effect of taking a pronounced enough load off of Haney Mukhtar.
Yeah.
So Nashville, they can still defend at an elite level. Walker Zimmerman's probably still the best CB in the league, but when it comes to the playoffs, like you got to be able to score with these teams. And Orlando's a terrible matchup for them. That's a terrible matchup for them because that's a team with a ton of firepower that can get at them on defense. And I don't know if they're going to be able to hang with that. And even if they are able to keep Orlando off the score sheet, like Nashville is simple, man. If you neutralize Haney Mukhtar, they're done.
Yeah, I agree. I think Orlando is going to show them what it means to be a well-rounded team and just boat race the hell
Orlando's
out of them.
not a bad cup pick, honestly, and I could easily see them beating FC Cincinnati in like a theoretical conference final.
Yeah, no, I think and that'd be a fun game to watch.
Yeah,
like
I'm thinking about it now.
the best
I
two teams in
that.
the league right now. Like I'd love to see them play.
Best two teams in the league and two of the most fun teams to watch in the league.
Yeah, I mean, sucks Messi's not in there,
God, just going through those East teams, it's like, God, these teams are so much better.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous.
It's
ridiculous.
You have you got teams with like serious juice that we just went through right there.
Yeah.
And then we're about to do the West, and it is not going to be like that. But anyway, let's do it.
Speak of the devil, first round, St. Louis City versus SKC. SKC won on penalties.
Okay, well, so SKC could still lose to the Quakes, but let's just pick it like that because SKC's out in front, and they're probably going to win that.
Yeah.
The Quakes aren't very good. So, that's a pretty sick matchup if that's what does happen.
I think St. Louis is taking either of those teams.
I was just having the opposite thought.
Really?
And I think St. Louis, okay, a best of all right, hear me out.
Hearing you out.
A best of 3 series.
Yeah.
It's hard to make it through one of those if you're fraudulent.
Correct.
And there's been a lot of evidence to suggest that St.
There's
Louis...
been chatter.
There's a lot... Look, I'm not even saying that to have a go at St. Louis City, so, if any St. Louis City
better capitalize
SC
that
fans
city, okay?
happen to be listening to this...
St. Louis City.
I'm not trying to bag on the squad, but like I was looking at these numbers the other day for a post we were doing on the website. The biggest XG underperformer and overperformers of 2023, which you might not put stock in that, but St. Louis City overperformed their XG by 20 goals, which is an insane number. Like, you pretty much never see that. And that's just a strong indicator to me that they're like they're not just getting like a little bit lucky, but they're like their record is like way above what their actual weight class is.
Yeah.
And I think the eye test has bared that out to me when I watch them play.
Yeah, that's
for
fair.
instance, Seattle just went on the road and handled them pretty easily. So I think like when they get to the playoffs, that I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen. I think there's a chance that could get exposed.
Mm-hmm.
By the same token, the wrestling enthusiasts have been in great form pretty much for the last few months, and they started the season 10 winless.
Yeah.
7 losses, 3 draws, no wins.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much since then,
Gritty.
they've had as good. It might be the best points per game in the West since that really terrible start. So
Yeah.
it gives me no joy to report it, considering that they enjoy professional wrestling more than they enjoy soccer. But they've been playing good soccer. So I think St. Louis drawing a team that's in some of the best form in the West, really over a sample of multiple months now.
And they're going to play them hard.
And when they're going to play them hard, there's a lot of data to suggest too that St. Louis is not as good as their record.
On fraud watch.
I think that's it. They're on fraud watch. I think that is I'm picking SKC there, and I actually feel pretty good about the pick. I like the pick.
I like what you're saying here, and you've convinced me. But I think something that you're leaving out too, with these games not going into extra time, you've got to factor in penalties. And when you're factoring in penalties, you got to think of WWE champion and Sporting Kansas City legend Tim Melia, who is disgusting against penalty kicks.
He is, but Roman Berkey's also one of the best
That's
goalkeepers
true.
in the league. I don't know how. Melia is specifically great against penalties. I don't know if that's the case with Berkey, but Berkey was probably the best goalkeeper in the league this year.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think just knowing specifically penalties and what Sporting has been able to do against penalties.
That's a good point.
I can see it. You know what? I will take the Sporting upset with you against St. Louis. And if it is San Jose, what are your thoughts there?
I would probably take St. Louis at that point, just because for as fraudulent as they may or may not be, the Quakes have been in bad form for as long as Sporting KC has been in good form.
Correct.
So I think even a fraudulent St. Louis side can get by the Quakes.
Yeah.
SKC, it's dicier. That's not they shouldn't like that matchup.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think they kick San Jose to the curb. I think anyone could do that, honestly. Next up, an interesting one, to me, a really interesting one at least, Houston RSL.
Yeah, I definitely like Houston in this series, and I like them to have a good chance at making a run in the playoffs. Ben Olsen is kind of the guru, man. They won Open Cup, and I think the thing you have to realize about the Dynamo is that, not only were they taking points and they winning the Open Cup, but they looked good doing it. They play aesthetically pleasing soccer. They play great team soccer. They bought in to the Ben Olsen experience, which I wasn't sure if that was going to happen. So I got to say, the Dynamo have impressed me quite a lot this year. When you think about what the Dynamo have been historically over the last few years, and when Ben Olsen got hired, I think a lot of people were like, what are you doing? This is a DC United retread who is known for playing really boring and unattractive soccer. It's weird to see him coaching a team that plays this beautifully,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Kind of surprising. But you know what I think that is, man, is DC United, they were not really giving him all that much to work with. He got a Lucho Acosta here and players like that here and there. But in terms of a full team of talented players, it's kind of what I was talking about with Wilfred Nancy, where he went from an organization where he didn't have a super great roster, and then he goes to one that does have a great roster. You see what happens. Benny O goes to Houston. They have new ownership. They're a lot more willing to spend money. They bring in Hector Herrera. I don't know if I would have called it a great roster, though. That's the thing. Nancy got the crew who are loaded. And when I saw Benny O going to Houston, I definitely didn't look at their roster and think, oh, okay, he's going to be cooking now. But, you got to give credit to the guy. Benny O's coached his ass off this year. I'm talking myself into a Benny O Coach of the Year take right now. He's probably not going to get it, but he's done a good job. And RSL, I mean, they really haven't been in good form for a long time. It's Pablo ball for them. They're gonna try and bunker and time waste and do all the stuff that we saw them do in Seattle in the David Ochoa game. Pablo's got no shame. RSL actually, I remember I was singing their praises earlier this year.
Correct.
That didn't really pan out.
On the Mark Kastner episode.
So their best midfielder, Pablo Ruiz, also named Pablo, he tore his ACL, I think, like halfway through the season, and he was like the engine of their whole team.
Yeah.
And they have not really figured out how to play without him. So because of that, their form dipped. Chicho Arango scored some goals, but hasn't really been able to carry enough of the load to get them out of the funk that they've been in. So I mean, yeah, I got Houston all day there.
Yeah, I also agree. I think Houston's a cup contender. I think, especially with their path to the final. I mean, let's say they hypothetically have to play St. Louis or Sporting or, God forbid, San Jose. I don't know. I think I could see them easily bamming on any of those teams, and that brings them to a conference final against, your worst case, maybe LAFC Seattle, best case of Vancouver. Like, I don't know. That's they play pretty soccer. So yeah, I'm also taking Houston with that one. Speaking of LAFC and Vancouver, LAFC Vancouver 3-6 seed.
Man, my first instinct is to just easily pick LAFC, and I think I probably am still going to go with LAFC, but I think Vancouver is going to mess with them a little bit, and I think it's going to be a tough series. LAFC, they got hot towards the end of the year. They started kind of looking like normal LAFC again. They had a couple games where they really blew up, and they had like a 5-goal game. Denny Spawanga won the Golden Boot. He's probably the scariest offensive player in the league. Just
he's nasty.
When he's running at you, like there's no more intimidating sight in MLS than that. But the Whitecaps all year have been. It's kind of like they're like the opposite of St. Louis. Like their record hasn't always been super great, even though they finished okay. But their performances, both by the eye test and by the underlying numbers, were very good. They played Vancouver, by a lot of metrics, played some of the best attacking soccer in the league this year. And
Cascadia Cup champions.
Yep. Cascadia Cup champions. The duo of Scottish Messi, Ryan Gauld, and Brian White is low-key ridiculously potent. Ryan Gauld was a fringe MVP candidate, 11 goals, 12 assists, I think. Brian White had 15 goals, 5 assists. Okay, like those are like upper tier MLS number 9 numbers from Brian White. So Vancouver is definitely a team that can get at LAFC and score some goals on them. They played on decision day and they drew 1-1 at BMO Stadium. So I think that's a pretty big confidence boost for Vancouver. Like they played in Champions League and LAFC blew the doors off them.
Yeah.
Like 6-0 on aggregate. So if that was their last taste in their mouths, like you might think that LAFC would have a pretty substantial mental edge. But Vancouver just drew them in their house where they're going to have to play again. So, you know what?
Uh-oh.
I don't believe in this take, really. This is probably going to be a bad take.
Talking myself into it.
I'm going to have some fun and pick the Caps here. I like the Caps. I think if they can get by LAFC here, they have a great chance to make a run. And I do think LAFC, as much better as they've looked lately, they've shown that they're a vulnerable squad.
Oh yeah, they're fraudulent for sure.
They've shown that they're a vulnerable squad. I really don't like them to come out of the West. Like I would probably pick Houston over them.
Oh, easy. Yeah, no, I agree.
I think a series with Seattle would be, or a playoff game with Seattle would be a toss-up, but Seattle's won those before.
Yep.
So, I don't think it's an LAFC year, and I think the Caps can do it. I think they can do it, and just because I think they can do it, it doesn't mean that I should pick them, but I'm going to. I'm feeling it.
I like the pick. I'm gonna go LAFC. I don't really think. I don't know.
I mean, it's the
right.
safe. It's the safe pick.
And I am no fan of that team, and I don't think that they're really gonna perform well outside of the Western Conference. So, if they made it to the final, which I honestly doubt they will, they're getting their shit rocked by basically any team on the East, and unless it's Philly in the final.
That could be
again.
true of like all these teams in the West.
Yeah, no, that's the
because
thing.
any team in the West is going to have to travel.
Yeah,
assuming that like something crazy doesn't happen in the East.
Yeah, unless it's Nashville or Atlanta.
Yeah, which that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all here for a Seattle Atlanta final. That's the sicko in me wants that so bad, but that's not happening.
I don't know if I could take that.
Why not? That'd be a home.
I mean,
final.
it would just be a matchup of two boisterous fan bases.
Correct. Well, we did ruin soccer, so I can't really blame them. And the team that did ruin soccer, Seattle Sounders versus number 7 FC Dallas. What do you got going for this one, Ari?
Yeah, I mean, I think we already talked about it a little bit, but I like Seattle in this series. I think having the home field advantage is actually huge here because even with the gap in quality that I see between these two teams, Seattle always seems to struggle on those Frisco road trips. I think they got a tie there the last time they played there. So it's not like they can't get a result there, but I think having the first game at Lumen is huge. Seattle tends to turn up in the playoffs regardless of who they're playing. But it seems like they kind of have FC Dallas's number in the playoffs the last couple times that they played. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 times this season they've played, they've both been draws, and I don't know. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna pick FC Dallas here.
All right, I like it.
Just because you picked the Sounders, and also because I'm still not sold that this Sounders team is actually not just a mess. I don't know. I think that how do you not rely on Nico and Raul in the playoffs? That's, I don't know how Brian's going to approach that. So I think until I see this first series, I'm not going to be betting or hedging anything on the Sounders to perform well in the playoffs.
That's fair. I mean, I would probably feel the same way like if we were talking about this like earlier in the season, but I do think like I put stock in the improved play that they've showed of late. Like I think that it's significant, at least for how I think of it. If we were talking mid-season when this team couldn't score a goal to save its life, I'd be like, yeah, I'd pick an FC Dallas all day. Seattle's not going to score a goal. Seeing them kind of start to look better over the 9 unbeaten, and then also, if you'd seen the St. Louis game, you might think of it differently. Because that was really like a game where it's like, all right, this is how a Seattle team is supposed to play.
Right.
It's nice to see them play like this. So if they can play like that in this Dallas series, they'll win the series. Like, I have no doubt in my mind.
And in that 9 unbeaten, they've had like 5 or 6 multi-goal games, so that is definitely something to.
It's been better on offense. They're not 2019 LAFC out there.
Correct.
But signs of life.
Well, we'll just have to see what happens on Monday, and let's hope I'm wrong because.
I know. I appreciate that you gave the contrarian pick.
Someone's got to, right?
You don't want to have like us picking the same teams. That's
exactly
boring audio.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're good to wrap it up right there. In that case, Noah.
I do want to say,
Yeah.
before we go,
Oh yeah.
I made a statement on this here podcast. I don't know if we ever put that one out or if it's out there somewhere, but I made a bet that Bear would not score for the rest of the regular season, and that bet did cash. But I do want to say, activate playoff Bear. Activate playoff Bear.
That would be incredible if he just goes like full Nelson Valdez and keys like a deep playoff run. That would be something else. I bet it's gonna happen.
I'm here for it. So let's see it. Activate him.
All right, we'll call that a wrap on this episode of Lobbin' Scorchers. Thank you all for tuning back in. Sorry about the delay. Like I said, we're gonna try and put a couple of these out at least during the playoffs. We'll be watching the games, keeping track of all the action. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, rate 5 stars, iTunes review, all that good stuff.
Correct.
And we appreciate you all for tuning in. Until next time, we out.
Peace.